Formation and development has been a top topic of late. We certainly want to continue to grow our students, again, in that solo element, and grow our faculty. Tends to get overlooked in the day-to-day. They're all focused on they've got their professional accreditation issues, they've got their day-to-day teaching, and sometimes the soul can get lost in there. So we're really looking to reinvigorate that healthy culture. And I mentioned staff and professional development here at the end. Again, as we're working day to day, we need to keep our teachers moving forward and improving themselves professionally. Next slide, please. Next, I just want to touch on administration and leadership. In the past, as we had to make cuts, unfortunately, a lot of that happened at the administration level. Wonderful team that works really hard, along with many of you as volunteers, to keep this school running. And we're so grateful and so impressed at times at how things get done, but we also recognize that things get overlooked. Again, some of the things I've already touched on in academic areas, maybe some discipline areas, certainly some just day-to-day management issues. We're very blessed to have great partners with the high school and Calvary, which they step in with shared resources as well. But we'd really like to bring back a full-time headmaster, principal, whatever you call it, a leadership position to oversee all that. So we're working really hard to work that into the budget. We've been working hard on job descriptions and trying to figure out where the holes are, what we're not plugging, talking to parents, talking to teachers, and working through that. So a lot of that's going to hopefully come to fruition here in the next couple of weeks, as far as where we feel we need to best able to fill that hole, and then where we actually do some hiring, hopefully this coming school year. As I mentioned just a second ago, the improved communications, and something I think we've stepped up. Thank you to John Lee, Liz Pike, several others that do our day-to-day communication with Facebook. Our newsletter, I think, has been very beneficial, and we want to continue to improve that. There seemed to be a real disconnect with making sure that things we're doing at the board level certainly aren't done in any secret manner. We actually have been talking about having some kind of presentation, you guys, for a long time, and things didn't seem to work out. We want to keep you informed. So certainly we have lots of opportunities to help out with our communication team on how to make sure you guys are getting the most relevant information. And again, I mentioned shared resources with our partners, whether it's the churches who have stepped up, as Mike said, financially. They've stepped up with counseling. They've stepped up with physical help, so we're very grateful to them. St. Clair's and our sports programs have been wonderful, and then also with the high school and our continued work with them. And we're going to continue to push on that. So again, a lot of this is also a budget item where we can share resources, administration and IT and communications and marketing, that we don't need to duplicate efforts, and we can share those costs together. Next slide, please. So where does this all take us as far as space? So our big burning questions, we've got lots of kids coming in. We're excited about that, a good problem to have. So how do we work the campus? So we're continuing to explore as Vail Christian's numbers come in, as our numbers finalize themselves, what do we do? So we have been looking at an option of putting some classroom space out on Lot 2. So we're officially on Lot 1. The east and west buildings are on Lot 1. Lot 2 is just beyond the parking lot, currently where the trailers and whatnot are. For storage, lot is owned by Gracious Savior. We've been in discussion with them on how we would use that lot effectively. We've also been working on our lease agreement with Vail Christian Schools. So the high school, many of you may or may not know, we had a one-year lease with the high school, assuming that we were going to move into a merger process. Lots of reasons that didn't happen, well, mostly good reasons, just lining ourselves up, not jumping in too quickly. We've negotiated a 3-year lease with them. We're working on a lease agreement or lease to own potentially for Lot 2. So this is just a graphical representation. It's pretty hard to read. I'll try this super cool pointer. It's too bright. So the kind of the grayed out area on the right side, see the parking lot, and the white is on the right side is the parking lot, and the grayed out area is lot 2. You can kind of see the triangle shape start to form there of where the space is. Next slide, please. This is a closer up view of that lot 2. You can see the edge of the parking lot to the left. And then for classroom buildings potentially. So each of those buildings would house 2 classrooms each. We don't need all of those. So this is accommodating growth. We're still working out whether we would do 2 or 3 or all 4 of those. God has been gracious. There is 4 trailers down in Silver Plume ready to go, ready with the snow load, and all we have to do is do a little retrofit and put them in place at a discounted price. We're very grateful for that. Next slide, please. This is a graphical representation model that the local architect and the Christian High School Board helped put together. This is looking into the courtyard created by those 4 modular buildings from the parking lot area, so you can kind of get a sense of what they look like. Next slide, please. So a little more aerial view. Again, the parking lot is to the left of this. So we create a bit of a secure interior courtyard that can be used for play area. That's one of our challenging issues with the road and the river. Next slide, please. Again, some of these entry elements are just to create similar character as a requirement for the county to the buildings that we have here now. If you look at the buildings, the color scheme, and of course the pitch of the roofs, just trying to create some common elements so our neighbors will be happy with the development. Next slide, please. And one last view. One more slide, please. So, all that said, what's our timeline? How do we pull this off? And like I said, it's all came together very quickly. We have secured with the county that we have to do a minor amendment to the planning, the zoning, I guess you want to call it, for this area. It's unfortunately a 1 to 3 month process, which that alone puts us into the start of the school year. We're working hard to finish that application and work with our neighbors, which are mostly the high school and Gracious Savior, not an issue, but then we have Cordillera that we have to talk to. If we get them to sign off quickly, hopefully we'll crunch the time down into 2 months maximum to get approval for this. And then it would be another month or to 2 months of actual site utility work and putting this equipment in place and getting moved in. So that would put us into September, October of next year. So we would spend a month, maybe 2 months in kind of a crunch mode, and don't know what that looks like yet. That's something we're working on. We've talked about several contingency plans of having kids in classrooms. Again, continued use of the 5th grade closet, continued use of the library space. There's a potential that high school have some rooms that we can use on a short-term basis, potentially using this space, auditorium for use, using the music room back behind us here as space. So we're working through those challenges. The last and not our preferred method is to split a couple of grades off and house them again for a 2-month window over at the Interfaith Community Chapel across the road. They have a couple of classrooms that we could do that if we absolutely had to. Last slide, please. So, a lot of information. How can you help? What does this mean for all of us? So prayer, as Russ mentioned at the beginning, prayer is critical. We've been blessed by so many things, the growth, simple things like trailers being available, other things like playground equipment that we might become available to us through a donation. Lots of just all of your help is just wonderful. So as Russ said, continue to pray for the school, pray for the board, God's direction on where to take all this. Next. Financial support. So we estimate, we're still working the numbers, but we're estimating that this is going to take about $200,000 to do the infrastructure and to get the equipment in place. So it's a significant capital improvement. We have already got commitment of $60,000 from a private donor as a pledge, and some other dollars will come through on that. So we're already actually on our way. Other financial support, things that we continue that are just always in our budget, operational pledges. So any of you that have the ability or know folks with the ability to continue to support on what you already provide tuition-wise. For operational, that's salaries, that's paying light bills, that's utilities, that's paying our rent. That would go into getting that full-time headmaster type role. Scholarship pledges, we also work hard as we offer as service back to our community and to our churches. We provide significant discounts to pastors' kids and to other kids in the valley that don't have the same financial means. So we have scholarship opportunities as well. And then playground equipment, we budgeted $60,000 for a new piece of equipment. Like I said, God's been gracious. We have some opportunities for some equipment being donated, so hopefully those costs come down significantly. And then land purchase and permanent facilities, so that'll be a capital campaign. That'll be a 3 to 5 year activity. If any of you have experience in any of these areas, raising funds, whatnot, looking for help, we can get there. And lastly, volunteers. Many of you already volunteer. So grateful to PTF and to our volunteers that help out in so many areas. But if you have not been involved, there's always those opportunities in PTF. Board positions we're always looking for great new talent. And then our committees, typically led by the board. We have communications, curriculum development, and other committees that I know some great minds in the room. So with that's the presentation. I think it's all good news. It's certainly challenging to grow, but we're making strides in the right direction. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions. If you would just state your name, and we'll do our best to answer them. If you're not comfortable in this forum, we'll be around afterwards.